Alright, so for the past few days, I've been working on creating a factory that produces a limitless amount of delighted meals from Cam's Harvest Craft. And so if we take a look at what's required, you see it's not that simple. I need a deluxe cheeseburger, some sort of smoothie, and fries. The smoothie and the fries are rather easy because it's just potatoes and salt, and then some sort of fruit mixed with snow. But the burger is quite difficult. So I gotta mix lettuce and tomato with a cheeseburger, take that cheeseburger, make it from a hamburger and cheese, then make a hamburger from some beef and toast. Toast comes from butter and bread, and yeah, it just keeps going. So what I thought to myself is, why don't I automate this? And that's what I've done right here. This is a basically 95% efficient automatic burger production facility. And I'm going to walk you through the details of how I achieved that. So we're going to start over here with this power line. You see it just goes off into the distance. If I take a look and follow it along and zoom out and drag along, you can see that it comes up here to my power plant. And so that is producing several tens of thousands of redstone flux per tick. And then I transmit it all the way here. I receive it with these transformers, turn it back into thermal expansion power with this energy cell, and then input it into my factory. Alongside that, we've got some arrays of aqueous accumulators, which just provide all the water that's needed for things like making dough, making salt, and so forth. This water pipe doesn't actually do anything, it's just aesthetic. And then here is probably the most unique part of the build, which is an automatic robot harvested crop farm that produces all the things that we need for burgers. We've got strawberries for producing smoothies, tomatoes and lettuce for the final deluxe cheeseburger, potatoes for fries, rye grain for the wheat, and soybeans as a means of getting an alternative cheese and milk that are needed for making the cheeseburger, and also buttered toast. And then of course some extra crops for when I decide to expand to other types of burgers. And on top of that, yeah, we still need to get the meat, and that's what this is for. This is essentially a very, very high density cow breeding system in which I have 4 cows in each of these cells. So that's 4 times 4 times 4 is 16, then 64. So it's 64 cows. So when I breed this set of cows, every time I get 32 offspring, and I have a computer that does it for me. Because what's necessary for breeding is to activate these dispensers, which throw a splash potion of love, which is provided by extra utilities, and it's the same as if I would right-click on each cow with some wheat. So it's basically an easier way to breed tons of animals. And so I deploy the splash potions, and for the most part, the babies just fall straight through, but for some of them, I do need to use the piston to push them. So let's take a look at how this works. So if I just call breed, there, the potions have been thrown. And now it's going to wait 10 seconds. You see, there go most of the cows. And then here we have this to flush out any cows get collected down inside this box, and they get piped out through here into the main factory building. It takes a little bit of time, but then they arrive in a holding cell. And then if I go up here to the attic and take a look at where they arrive in this little cell where I can kill them with a Fortune 3 sword so that I get as much beef as possible. And then I can simply deposit that beef into one of these caches here so that's available for the system. Now, let me just go ahead and sleep, and then I'll demonstrate the automatic crop harvesting. works is I've set up these 8 robots so far with so that they have a certain wake message set for their modem, meaning that their modem is in the background even though this robot is not turned on. If it receives a message containing a certain string, it'll activate and begin harvesting. And so that's exactly what I do. I have a sort of master computer here, which sends out that wake message, and then waits a little bit of time for these guys to boot up, and once they're all ready and waiting for the start command, it then broadcasts a second start command, which makes these guys go and do their thing. They'll harvest, they'll come back, deposit their goods in the chest, and then I've got some sneakily placed item ducts down there that'll suck everything up and put it in those caches. So let's take a look at how this works. If I type dispatch, there you see all of the robots have activated, and I think it says, yep, 8 seconds have passed, and now they've got the start command, and now they're going to go harvest the entire field, and then deposit their goods. So while they're doing their thing, I'm just going to go ahead and show off the what I consider the best part of this factory, which is actually producing the burgers. And you see all the items get collected over here. So we see we've got a few thousand lettuce, tomatoes, everything else is currently still empty. And it's connected to this applied energistics system with a bunch of storage buses. Meaning that these caches are essentially storage containers for this applied energistics system. And then all this, you see we've got basically 32 channels used, and that's sent across this cable. And if we follow this cable along, we end up at this array of machinery. And so here we can see what's currently available on our system. And what we do is we take those raw ingredients and we can use export buses underneath certain crafting components to essentially pipe the items that we need where we need them. For example, we have first of all a water crafting thing that takes in buckets of water from our external water pumps, produces fresh water for Pam's Harvest Craft, which is much more efficient use of our water than just using straight up vanilla water, and then that goes to making salt. Salt is stored here, and it's available via a storage bus in our system, right? And so, for example, fries need salt, so what we do is we have an export bus under there, which is set to export potatoes from our main storage, and the salt from over here, so we can produce our fries. And currently we're missing potatoes, so that's what it's waiting on. Same thing over here with butter, right? We have some centrifuges whose job is to take soybeans and centrifuge them into silken tofu. That silken tofu then gets put into this fabricator to make butter, which then becomes available to the system if there were any. But right now we're waiting on soybeans, so that's that. And so the process continues. We've got butter. The butter is available to the system via a storage bus, so then it gets piped along to here where we mix it with bread to make toast. Then toast gets mixed with ground beef, that's produced in this pulverizer, produces hamburgers. Then we have another centrifuge here which takes some other soybeans, or it takes the silken tofu and then can centrifuge that into soy milk. And that soy milk we use here for the production of cheese, right? And again, you see salt is being exported here as well. Then that cheese can turn these hamburgers into cheeseburgers. And finally, we turn the cheeseburger into deluxe meal, and then we package it all together here by taking the fries, the deluxe cheeseburger, and the strawberry smoothie and mixing them all together. And so if I come outside and take a look, yep, you see they're on their last row almost. And once they are here, I want to show off the actual items moving through the system, because it's pretty cool to watch everything sort of come to life. Now, one expansion I've not yet added is the fact that if I provide a fortune tool to a robot, it actually does collect more produce. So what I need to do is just assemble an array of 8 sort of junk fortune tools that I can give to these guys that they can just use while harvesting. But now you see they're done with harvesting, so they'll all come back and they'll come back to their stations, deposit their goods, and shut down, and are ready to go immediately for the next run once these crops are fully grown. Additionally, you'll see our cows have all ended up here. They'll wait here until they're fully grown, then I can slaughter them and get the meat. It takes a little bit of time for the crops to arrive in this system, but you see we've got some strawberries already. So if I take a look at our terminal, we can see that we're producing some strawberry smoothies. We've got fries being produced now because we've got potatoes, right? Let's see, what else? Bread should be coming in soon. Yep, there's some rye wheat. So if we take a look at this, yep, we're making some dough. We have a pulverizer back there that's grinding up the flour, turning it to dough, then baking the dough into bread, and so forth. And you see that our soybeans are now being produced into soy milk and tofu. And that turns into butter, cheese, and then the final burgers. And so we can slowly see our final assembled meals ticking upwards. Now for this next part, I'm going to go into detail of how I set up these robots, since I'm guaranteed that's an interesting part of this for some select few viewers. So I'm going to take this first robot, turn him on. And so this is exactly what happens as if you would have received the wake message from the master computer. And you see it opens a port and waits for a start command. So I'm just going to actually exit this right now. And let's edit harvest.lua. So I've got my components, wake message, and start command. And so these are essentially just fixed strings that the robot is set to receive. Here I define how many rows, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The length of each row, which is 32 blocks. And protected slots. That means that this first slot is protected, meaning we're not going to empty it completely. We're going to leave one item there. And that ensures that we can never actually sort of corrupt the state of this robot's inventory, because if we just leave always one item in there and deposit everything else, we always know that we're in the right configuration for starting back up. We know we're going to pick up the right items. And now here's a little trick that I use a lot of times, basically in every robot program I make, which is sort of a safe move function. The default robot moving methods, so forward, back, up, down, they're not safe, meaning if you call that function, it's not guaranteed to move your robot, because it can return false, indicating that the robot could not move. So what I have is just sort of a wrapper around that function, which just, as you can see, repeats forward until it was successful, and then ends. So I use that instead of forward. That way I'm 100% guaranteed to know exactly where my robots are without fail. Then I have a simple method to check if a certain slot number is protected by looking through all the protected slots I've declared and, returning true if it is one. Here's our function for dumping items once we've reached the end of the harvest cycle. So we just iterate over every inventory slot, check if there's some items in there, dump all of them. If it's a protected slot, we leave one, right? So we do count equals count minus 1, then dump. And right at the end, we select the first slot again and return how many items we've actually dumped. And here's our harvest function, which is actually not too bad. So what we do is we just move forward once so that we're above the first slot, then do a double for loop. So first for each row, then we do for each row length, we just move forward, so we swing down, then place down, so we essentially harvest, place again, and then move forward to the next spot. And the reason why we have to do this for Pam's Harvest Craft, even though Pam's Harvest Craft crops can be right-clicked, is that robots can't right-click them. And there's simply no way around that, so what we have to do is just indiscriminately break everything and replace everything. And it's the only way I can automate Pam's Harvest Craft at this point, so I have to do that. And then once we're at the end of the row, we say if we're on an even row, then, well, if we're on an odd row, here, let's do this right here. If the row number is odd, then we turn left. So this is row 1, turn left. Then this is row 2, turn right, turn left, and so we sort of snake our way around. Alright? And then at the end, there's just a little bit of a loop to take us back to the starting point, and then that's it. And so to wrap that all up, we've got this start method, where we beep, open the port, you know, print that message that you saw earlier, and then continuously try to receive signals until we receive the start command. Then we harvest the area, and then dump the items, and then send the item count back to the master computer, although I don't actually use this data yet, but it's nice to have that functionality, and then finally we shut down. So that's how that works, and the master computer is actually very simple. If I take a look at that, yeah, all we do is open the port, broadcast our wake message, wait a little bit, then broadcast the start message, and that's it. And so that's how I'm able to do that. Now the cow breeding thing is also pretty simple, because I just have one redstone input for activating the dispensers and one on the bottom for activating the pistons. So if I take a look at this method, or this function, you can see I just have a method pulse, which turns on and off a redstone output on a certain side for some delay. I think it's just 1 second in these cases. So I just pulse the top one, then that throws the potions, then I wait 10 seconds, then I use the pistons a few times. I just pulse them a few times so that I can eject any extras. And then, yeah, that's basically it. Now, I mentioned earlier how I use potions of love to breed the cows, and I don't just manually brew those. What I have is a breeding potion synthesis lab, where I take in water. You see I've got my water and power pipes there. So I take in water, I can put in nether warts in here to produce awkward potions, fill them into glass bottles, and then I pipe the awkward potions into here, where they're made with rose bushes, into love potions. Then those love potions are piped into this one, where we turn them into splash potions. And then we end up down here with a whole ton of splash potions of love. Right? More than I'll ever need. And eventually I'll hook up an item duct to transfer these directly over to where they're needed. Now it's not really needed. And so yeah, in the near future I plan to expand this factory to include not just these delighted meals, but if I search burger, you see there's a whole variety of burgers. I can make plain cheeseburgers, onion, bacon cheeseburgers, deluxe, coleslaw, bacon mushroom burger, beet burger, and then some gourmet burgers. And I plan to expand this factory so that it's able to produce not just delighted meals, but every single burger available, to make this into the true American factory. But yeah, that about wraps it up. Thanks for watching.